The man suddenly discovered an easy way to make money. All he had to do was pretend to be blind. Not only could he sit at the temple gate and beg openly, but he could even use his blindness to secure free government-provided rental housing. Yet this wasn't the extent of his schemes. He also leveraged his identity as a pianist to play in people's homes, since no one would guard against a blind man. Thus, he often spied on the private lives of many female homeowners. Little did he know that feigning blindness would become the greatest regret of his life. One day, he went as usual to play for the birthday celebration of a wealthy man's wife. Yet when the door opened, the woman seemed reluctant to let him in, claiming he might have mistaken the time. But Akash had already received the wealthy man's deposit, and a substantial final payment awaited him after the performance, so he couldn't possibly have the wrong time. As they argued, the commotion drew the attention of the elderly neighbor. The woman, seemingly unwilling to attract the neighbor's notice, had no choice but to let him in. After confirming Akash was genuinely blind, she finally allowed him to play the piano. Yet barely had he begun playing, when he was startled by the scene before him. A corpse lay sprawled in the living room. He finally understood why the woman had been reluctant to let him in, but now he couldn't show his panic. He made an excuse to use the restroom, passing through the living room, to appear more convincingly blind. He deliberately stepped into the pool of blood on the floor. He thought the restroom would calm him down, but it turned out to be the most terrifying place. The killer was hiding behind him, gun in hand. Terrified, he dared not breathe a sound, fearing any slip-up would lead to his own death. Fortunately, his bladder was sufficiently full to avoid arousing suspicion. Only upon returning through the living room did he recognize the body lying on the floor as the tycoon himself. Though terror gripped his heart, he forced himself to continue playing the piano with feigned composure. Meanwhile, the woman beside him pretended to call the tycoon, claiming he would arrive in 10 minutes. Then, right before Akash's eyes, they began disposing of the body. Before long, the man stuffed the body into a suitcase, preparing to haul it away and destroy all evidence. The tycoon's wife, Simi, deliberately walked to the doorway to create the illusion of welcoming her husband home. Then Simi pulled out a recording of the tycoon's voice and pretended to converse with her husband in front of Akash. But after a few sentences, Simi claimed the tycoon had to leave suddenly on urgent business. The man then slipped into the tycoon's clothes, dragged the suitcase, and walked out the door. After leaving the mansion, Akash immediately went to the police station to report the murder. But the moment he uttered those words, he spotted the man who had been hiding in the bathroom approaching. To his shock, the man was wearing a police uniform and was none other than the station chief. Akash froze in place, his heart pounding in his throat.
घबराओ नहीं, बड़े साहब आ गए। बताओ, किसका मर्डर हुआ है?
Fortunately, he quickly came up with a plan. He hurriedly explained that his own cat had been killed, but the chief clearly didn't believe this explanation. He had just killed the wealthy man, and the blind man came to report it. This made him highly suspicious that the blindness was fake. To verify his suspicion, the chief decided to personally drive him home. However, upon entering the house, the chief noticed that day's newspaper on the table. Akash explained it was for cleaning up cat feces. The chief clearly didn't buy it. He then subjected Akash to repeated tests, even throwing a small knife at Akash's head. Fortunately, Akash overcame his fear and didn't give himself away. Seeing this, the chief assumed he'd overreacted and left. Little did he know he'd pay a terrible price for his misjudgment.